A lot of my first time business buyer clients are running into this huge problem that you absolutely need to avoid. So what this is about is buying an off-market business versus buying a business that has a listing. And here's the problem is that everybody thinks that it's going to take the same amount of time to pursue an off-market business, that it's going to cost the same amount, and that they're going to be able to go even get a better price. It's going to cost them less potentially. And it'll be potentially quicker because maybe they can get a full seller finance transaction instead of having to wait through the onerous lending process. And that is definitely a misperception. And what ends up, and here's the problem. There's a few problems that happen. I'm going to walk you through them. So one of them is the deals usually end up taking longer. You thought you were going to get it done in a few months. That's just because you don't have the proper information behind you to get it done. Very often the seller doesn't have enough documents in place for you even to assess the financial performance of the business. And these first-time buyers are thinking, well, I can go through what financials they have and figure it out myself. That's ridiculous, by the way. I mean, that's like saying what's a good analogy? That's like saying I'm gonna go play soccer and I'm also gonna I'm gonna go make up the rule book as well. It's like, how about you just go play soccer and you don't reinvent the whole process? And it's you'd be shocked at the type of stuff that you miss when you try to play a due diligence accountant yourself. Okay, and it's happening to people all over the place. So that's one thing is your timeline it's going to take you 6 to 12 months at a minimum to buy a business. Whereas for an on-market deal, if you just follow the correct process and hire competent advisors, you can get that done in 3 to 4 months. If there's a delay, add on another month there. And you can actually, accomplish your goals, finish your acquisition journey if you just follow the process that you're supposed to be doing that is set out for you and that we obviously follow. And so, yeah, don't try to go do the off-market deals unless you're totally ready for everything involved. So what's another big problem with the off-market deals is, you're going to be dealing with the seller directly as opposed to a broker. Now, the great thing about dealing with a seller broker, even though there's good and bad things about different seller brokers, right? The great thing about it is they can talk to the seller and explain to them when the seller's totally doesn't know what they're doing, or they think my business is worth this. Well, the broker will tell them, no, it's not worth that. Here's the market price. You should accept this offer. The broker is the sales intermediary for a reason. His job is to get the deal over the line, to keep the seller, to help the seller in ways that also include keeping the seller in check. And so you actually want the broker. The idea of not having a broker on the sell side, I guess if you think about it in the home sales context, I can understand it because, you're not really understanding all of the different things that the seller's broker of a business is doing, but they're actually, the good brokers are actually doing a lot of work and the seller's paying them to do it right. And obviously a lot of them are also helping them prepare the business for sale. So when you go for an off-market deal, you're not getting that as well. You're going to get your close rate is going to be way down if you look at the statistics for off-market deals. What are some other, I did a little prep list here. What are some other, issues that come up? I mean, I guess the biggest one as well is that you're going to be, because the timer is going to be, the timeline is going to be longer, you're more likely going to be in for more fees, even though advisor fees, even though you thought that you were going to be getting the process done sooner. Maybe you're, for example, paying your accountants for due diligence and you get a few months into it and you realize, hey, the records weren't even sufficiently put together because, again, it was an off-market deal for the accountants to work, and now they need to get a whole nother slate of documents from the seller and do everything over again. And let me tell you, that does happen. And so, I think there's a lot of strategic ways you can approach off-market deals. If you're, for example, doing a roll-up of a very specific local niche, and you have a list of the 10 businesses in your city that do X, well then heck, I mean, if your strategy is to go roll up those businesses, get at it. I mean, likelihood is they're not going to be all listed, or even one of them might not be listed on the market, right? On the other hand, It's important to note that we always have to look back, and this is going to be the last point I make here. We always have to look back at what is the investment thesis of a first-time business buyer? It's to put 5% down with a SBA 7A loan. And it's to get that $1 million profit plus obviously, less taxes, but the $1 million take home plus for that very small relatively down payment per year, right? So the investment thesis is to buy into a winning business and get that cash flow. It's not to go help people with their financials. It's not necessarily to go do a roll up. That's a completely different investment thesis. I like to say, everybody should just be doing one deal at a time and not planning their $1 billion roll up, right? Do one deal. If the transition might be more than you thought it was going to be, right? So there's a lot you have to get through with your first deal, and then go from there. And so at the end of the day, the investment thesis is to buy great businesses using the amazing leverage of the SBA 7A loan. It's not to go reinvent the wheel. So I'll leave you with that. Go buy listed businesses. Don't overwork the problem. And you can, obviously, if you need an attorney, you can reach out to us at princeby.com to do your transaction offer and all that.